أهلا بيكم. احنا معاكم النهاردة هنستكمل حوارنا مع سعادة السفير الدكتور أكسل ويبنهورست سفير دولة أستراليا لدى جمهورية مصر العربية. في لقاء اليوم هنتحدث عن تاريخ العلاقات ما بين مصر وأستراليا في كافة المجالات والتعاون في كافة المجالات، فابقوا معنا وتابعونا. مشاهدينا في كل مكان، احنا بنستكمل معاكم حوارنا مع سعادة السفير الدكتور أكسل ويبنهورست سفير دولة أستراليا لدى جمهورية مصر العربية. Your Excellency, thank you so much for this second interview.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
اسم الدولة أستراليا أو رسمياً كومنولث أستراليا. الموقع الجغرافي: تعتبر دولة أستراليا الدولة الوحيدة في العالم التي تمثل قارة تقريباً نظراً لاتساع مساحتها، وهي تقع جنوب الشرق آسيا، وحدودها الجغرافية تتمثل في المحيط الهندي يحدها من جهة الغرب، ويحدها المحيط الهادئ من جهة الشرق، ويحدها كلاً من بحر أرافورا وبحر تايمور من جهة الشمال، وهذان البحران يفصلان قارة أستراليا عن قارة آسيا. دولة أستراليا إدارياً إلى مقاطعتين أساسيتين هما إقليم العاصمة وإقليم الشمال، و6 ولايات، وتمتلك كل ولاية وكل مقاطعة كبرى لها برلمانها الخاص ومجلس تشريعي واحد في الإقليم الشمالي وإقليم عاصمة أستراليا وكوينزلاند، ومجلسين تشريعين في باقي الولايات. تعد الولايات كيانات ذات سيادة، على الرغم من أنها تخضع لبعض قوى الكومنولث على النحو المحدد في الدستور، كما أن هناك مقاطعة خارجية وهي جزيرة نورفولك هي، ولكنها بقانون نورفولك عام 1979 تتمتع بسلطة أكبر وحكم ذاتي.
In this interview, we'd like to talk about the history of the relations between Egypt and Australia. So, what can you tell us about it?
So bilateral relations between Egypt and Australia started 75 years ago. So in 1950, Australia opened its embassy here in Cairo. And soon after, the Egyptian embassy opened in Australia. So it's a very long history. The embassy here is Australia's first embassy in the Middle East and North Africa. So historically, Egypt has been seen as a very important country by Australia.
Your Excellency, now I would like to know more about the volume of the trading between Egypt and Australia.
So the volume of trade is approximately 900 million Australian dollars per year, so that's about 600 million US dollars.
With this history of relations, is there any investment between the two countries, and in what field exactly?
So there are quite a few investments. The main one that I'd like to mention first is the 10 and 20 pound Egyptian banknotes. These are made with technology from an Australian company. So they've set up strong investment worth billions of dollars. There is an investment in recycling banana plants to produce food packaging and fertilizer. There is an Australian company that is doing consulting for the Egyptian government on hydrocarbons, and the nuclear power station that's being constructed on the north coast. These are the main investments by Australia in Egypt.
Of course, there's also cooperations in several fields. So we can start talking about the culture of cooperation, for example.
Yes, so there have been several performances by Australian musicians and artists here in Egypt. We've had Joseph Tawadros perform. He is an oud player born in Egypt but grew up in Australia. He has performed a few times here in the last 3 years. There is an Australian conductor who composed, an Australian composer who composed a requiem which was performed here in Egypt in August with an orchestra conducted by Naya Nagy. This was a very important cultural collaboration between Egypt and Australia. And we've had lecturers come to Egypt to talk about indigenous knowledge around climate change and how indigenous people manage the environment and how we can learn from this to manage our environment today and to mitigate climate change.
And what about higher education? Is there cooperation in the field of higher education and things about the scholarships in between the two countries?
Yes, so there is a scholarship program between Australia and African countries, including Egypt. Every year several scholarships are offered for Egyptian postgraduate students to study in Australia. And I understand there have been different subjects that Egyptian students have been able to study, including engineering, including agriculture, including mining, including climate, very diverse. And this is a very important area of cooperation between Egypt and Australia. But also there is cooperation between universities. So one Australian university is working with a couple of Egyptian universities on developing the curriculum in different fields, but particularly in medical education. So again, this is very promising. But I think there is a lot of potential at the moment in developing higher education links between Egypt and Australia.
Your Excellency, Egypt and Australia are both big agriculture countries. So is there any cooperation in the field of agriculture researches?
Yes, there is. Very soon we will be announcing a specific program of cooperation which involves an Australian research institute to work here in Egypt with the Egyptian government on research in agriculture. And this will depend on a visit by them to talk to the Egyptian government to find out what the priorities are. So once this has happened, the program of cooperation can start. And I think this will build on cooperation in the past that has led to many improvements in crops being grown in both of our countries.
And what about the tourism sector? Is there any cooperation in this field between the two countries?
There's a lot of cooperation in tourism. I understand that about 40,000 Australian tourists visit Egypt every year, but I expect that this will increase greatly because last year there were 3 separate Egyptology exhibitions in different parts of Australia. Including Ramses and the Gold of the Pharaohs in Sydney, which attracted about 500,000 visitors. So when you consider the population of Australia, this is a huge number of people. So I think the fascination that Australians have for ancient Egypt is very strong. And I expect that this will be reflected in tourism numbers in the foreseeable future. But of course, the number of visitors from Egypt to Australia is also growing. There are approximately 60,000 Egyptians living in Australia, and more than 100,000 people in Australia consider that they have Egyptian origin. So I think this is also leading to a great deal of tourism between our two countries. So the opening of the Grand Egyptian Museum was a magnificent spectacle. It was amazing because it was a mix of music, of Egyptian art, of lighting, and of course the pyramids as the backdrop. And I think it announced to the world what a great destination the Grand Egyptian Museum will be. I've visited the Grand Egyptian Museum myself. It's a magnificent building. A lot of effort went into the design and the architecture. It's a huge building. It will take a long time to see everything, but everything is there, and it will showcase the amazing history of ancient Egypt to the world. And it is really a cultural heritage for the whole world, not just for Egypt. And I know Australians will be very keen on visiting the museum.
Your Excellency, beside the museum, it's known that Egypt is an open museum itself. So have you been around Egypt, and what is your favorite tourist destination?
I've seen many different parts of Egypt, and I've enjoyed all of them. My favorite, I would have to say, is probably the North Coast, because it's extremely relaxing. I like the ocean, I like the sand, and it makes me forget that that I have to work, the next week, for example. So the North Coast is magnificent, but I like many other parts of Egypt as well. I've had brief visits to Luxor and Aswan. Probably of all the cities in Egypt, apart from Cairo, Aswan is my favorite, because you feel like it's a very friendly city. It's a city with its own history and culture. It has the rocks in the middle of the river, and it's just a very different atmosphere. So I enjoy Aswan very much. I also enjoyed visiting Port Said. It's a town which has a lot of seafood. It has a lot of history with Australia, because Australia is a great trading country. A lot of ships pass through the Suez Canal, and a lot of Australians have visited Port Said in the past. So the city is a very relaxed city, and I enjoyed crossing the canal to East Port Said. I enjoyed the pistachio ice cream that you find there. It's a really beautiful city.
That's great to hear about it. Your Excellency, back to the cooperations. Is there any cooperation in the field of health sector between Egypt and Australia, or no? Or not yet?
So I think this will be a great area of future cooperation between Australia and Egypt. There has been a memorandum of understanding that's been signed between Australia and Egypt around health standards, certification, and so I think this can be a great field of cooperation in future. And I know Egypt's health sector is very big, and Australia's health sector is also quite big. And so it makes sense that in future there will be more cooperation between our two countries in this field.
Your Excellency, I would like to ask about the historical visit of the Governor General of Australia to Egypt, and how President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi met him. So how do you read this visit?
It was a wonderful visit. The Governor General was welcomed with the best welcome we could have imagined. The Governor General was able to meet President al-Sisi. There was a very warm conversation that lasted 1 hour about all the different areas of cooperation, whether in agriculture, in tourism, in trade in general, but also, you know, the areas in which we can cooperate in future, such as mining, a great area of potential due to Egypt's mineral wealth and Australia's mining expertise. I think this was led to a great deal of interest by Egyptian businesses in trade in Australia, in many different fields, and I feel that the trading relationship will expand a bit just as a result of this visit as well. Plus, the Governor-General was able to visit some some cultural sites. She visited the Grand Egyptian Museum and she visited the pyramids. And as a result, I think, you know, she will come away and remember this visit very, very warmly indeed. It was a lovely visit of and a warm welcome that she received here by everyone she met.
Middle East countries, in your opinion?
So I think the main thing that sets Egypt apart is that the people have a great sense of humor. They love to joke. They are the funniest people in the Arab world, and you can always have a warm conversation with them. They love to interact with the tourists, with the visitors. They like to talk about all subjects. They're very outgoing people, but also I think, you know, Egypt is a country that has an ancient civilization. We must remember the thousands of years of civilization that exists here, and it's really reflected in the atmosphere of the country. You know, Egyptians are very proud of their history, they're proud of their culture, and that's very clear when I visit, when I talk to people. But of course, not only ancient Egypt, it has a very rich history. The Coptic period, the Islamic period, it is a continuous history for thousands of years. And there are many, many layers, and it's possible to discover this by talking to Egyptians and visiting the different places.
And did you try, Your Excellency, the Egyptian cuisine?
I did try the Egyptian cuisine.
Which one? Which plate is your favorite one? Which one is your
favorite? So I like hawashi mainly because it's a dish that uses mincemeat, and I'm a big fan of mincemeat, and it's very filling. But of course, a close runner-up is koshari. I have been to koshari restaurants, and it's also very delicious. So these are my two favorite dishes in Egypt.
Your Excellency, one of the famous monuments in Australia is the Sydney Opera House, and it's something really everybody is looking forward to it. And the same thing here in Egypt, we have one of the oldest opera house in the Middle East. So is there any cooperation in the field of arts between the two opera houses, or is there any common things else you would like to talk about it?
Yes, so there is some cooperation in the cultural field, in the music field. As mentioned, Nair Nagy has had cooperation with an Australian composer, so I think this is also an area where cooperation can occur in future. In the field of opera, I have a great ambition. I hope that one day the great Egyptian soprano Fatima Said can perform in the Sydney Opera House. Her voice is magnificent, and I've seen her perform, including at the opening of the Grand Egyptian Museum. And I think if she can perform in the Sydney Opera House, it will be wonderful for both of our countries. This will be something maybe I can work towards for the rest of my posting.
That's great. And what about the Egyptian Opera House? Is there any fields or let's say a big sopranos in Australia, they will be welcomed here soon to have a show on the Egyptian Opera House?
So again, this is a very good idea, and I think this is something that we can work on in the future. So of course it requires some preparation, but we will see what we can do to invite an Australian performer to come here to Egypt to perform. That's a great idea.
Your Excellency, thank you so much for the second time for this interview and for all this information that you shared with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed speaking with you.
Thank you, sir. مشاهدينا في كل مكان، وبكده انتهى لقائنا مع سعادة السفير الدكتور أكسل ويبن هورست، سفير دولة أستراليا لدى جمهورية مصر العربية. نتمنى أن تكونوا تابعتوا معانا الحلقات دي والحلقة السابقة وعرفتوا معانا أكتر عن دولة أستراليا وأيضا عن العلاقات ما بين مصر وأستراليا في كافة المجالات. شكرا جدا لحسن متابعتكم لي وإلى اللقاء.